Fiscal Bureau numbers?
Yeah, we've been saying for the last month we thought that the numbers the Fiscal Bureau would put out, obviously the nonpartisan legislative Fiscal Bureau, well respected by all members of the legislature, we said that we thought that would be pretty close to what we put in our budget. Essentially that's what they're at. They're at what we said in the budget. I know there were some folks hoping for greater numbers. We thought it would be pretty conservative, pretty consistent with what we've said. Our hope, though, is met again with legislative leaders in both parties again this morning. And our hope, as I've said for the past month or so, is that we can find other savings in the budget, working with the Joint Finance Committee members and working with the legislature as a whole to put into public education. I don't know there'll be a whole lot more room on top of that, but we want to make sure that all of our public schools are made whole going forward. And we think there's some things we can work with lawmakers on to make that happen.
What do you mean, for example, where would the money come from?
Make whole would be in terms of we funded the base for public schools. There's another $127 million or so roughly. That was one-time money put in 2 years ago that schools feel like they built into the budgets. And so we want to make sure that they're made whole in terms of having the same funding opportunities available. And then if there's anything else, we'll see if it's provided overall or maybe in the particular areas, things like special education, other areas may be on the list as well.
Will it cover all of your cuts?
What's that?
Will it cover all of what was cut in your original budget?
Yeah, for public education, our goal would be to add in the money that was the bonus from 2 years ago. Again, that's what they built. Many of them built into their base, even though it wasn't in the base funding.
So what does this mean particularly for the UW? It looked like the JFC didn't want to make that $300 million cut, but where do you go from here?
Well, we'll see. My hope is we're going to go back to the legislature and make the case for the authority. There is no new money to put in, so I don't know where they're going to make an adjustment. They weren't talking about easing up on the budget adjustment. They were talking about just purely taking away the authority, which I would think would be the worst of all situations, in that our reforms were based on giving them authority that would give them the capacity to make up, particularly with a permanent block grant that in the next couple of years they can more than make up for with the assistance from the state. They don't have the authority, and at least at a minimum, they don't have the flexibilities that were built into the authority. They'll face some real challenge. I think talking to legislative leadership today, there is a real interest in giving them flexibilities. We're still going to try and make the case to the full legislature for the authority.
If I may, Governor, just an update on the arena situation.
We're still having discussions. Our folks are meeting. Staff has been meeting the last few days since I met with everybody last week. It'll take us some time. I think right now, though, as you might imagine, until we resolve some of these other issues, dealing with the schools and any other big adjustments in the budget, I think the legislature is going to be reluctant to sign off on any final plan until we know where we're at in terms of covering public education first.
And to that end, do you think the Bucks ought to disclose their financial picture so you and local officials have some idea of what they can bring to the table?
Well, I mean, I think what we know for sure is what the two owners and Center Core are putting. That's $250 million. That's much more significant than just about any state across the country in terms of any other location. Certainly more would always be better, but we still, when you look at $250 million investment from outside of the public, from the current and previous ownership, that's pretty significant. Again, if we want to add more, certainly we'd take it. Anything more would help. But the bottom line is, as I've said all along, for me, this is not about helping the Bucks. It's not about the team. It certainly is nice to have a professional team. It's really about protecting the financial interest in the state of Wisconsin, in that if we don't have the Bucks, we know the NBA Board of Governors has already made it clear the team will be gone after 2017, and we'll have a sizable hole in future state budgets. I'd rather keep the team, have a new arena, provide a benefit to Milwaukee, and then most importantly, have a continuous revenue stream that we believe in our original plan and in any of hopefully the future plans can more than cover itself by the growth we'd have in revenue from the NBA.
So what kind of timeline are we looking at as far as hopefully having an agreement in place?
Well, I'm still hoping in the next few weeks we can get down to an agreement, but I don't know if that's something we'll announce until some of the bigger decisions are made on the state budget. Because I think it's hard to make a big announcement in regards to arena and not have worked out things like what we're going to do with K through 12 public education.
I would suggest the revenue numbers today complicate the arena discussion.
I think so. Yeah, I think there's no doubt about that. I mean, I think if we had a clear answer today about what we were going to do with that and tweaking things like the UW and others, it'd be a lot easier to talk about other subjects. I think the clear sentiment in the Capitol where I was at earlier today is that we want to resolve those big issues regarding K through 12 education and a few of the others first. Well, Bob Lang, the head of the veteran head of the nonpartisan legislative Fiscal Bureau, made it clear the biggest concern they had was about the national economy. It wasn't about the states, although they worry about a ripple effect, but it's in light of some of the numbers we've seen even the last month in terms of the national economy and wondering what the ripple effect would be. We've said for some time, as you know, we thought it would be much more conservative. If there was an increase, it would be fairly modest. I think the concern the Fiscal Bureau has, they might adjust it later, but is what is the impact of the slow growth that we have nationally, and what does it mean to the state's economy? As saw in the Journal Sentinel today, one of the University of Wisconsin professors in economics pointed out that the state is actually performing better in many regards in the state's economy versus the nation, particularly when it comes to the not only unemployment rate but labor participation rates. But again, a big slowdown in the national economy can certainly have an impact.
Do you think any items in the budget that cost money, such as perhaps drug testing people on benefits, might be reconsidered now?
No, we think all along, we felt that the savings would outrule any of the cost in terms of drug testing. So we're not scoring that out as an increase. We think in terms of the savings it provide in terms of benefits actually offsets that going forward.
I think you're leading the latest Quinnipiac poll. When can we expect any kind of an announcement from you?
Oh, I think my number one responsibility as governor is to see through a budget. I want to have a budget done by the end of June that ultimately lowers property taxes, that provides a significant, substantial amount for our schools in the state of Wisconsin, and makes other significant investments. Once we do that, once I sign that, then I think shortly thereafter we'll be prepared to announce what our intentions are.
Last question.
Can you please comment about the tragedy in the Nashville?
Well, it's just horrific. I mean, it's just one of those where just as, not just as governor, but as a father, as a husband, as a family member, I just can't imagine what those families are going through. It's just a real tragedy. And it goes to the heart of something we did a couple years ago. We put about $30 million more in for mental health treatment to try and provide more assistance for people suffering from depression and other issues out there in all parts of the state, and we need to continue to build off of that.
Thanks, guys.